being. Now, being is living in our head or our heart. Often if we're doing, we're in our head, and if we're being, we're being in our heart. And our head is the ego. This is the false reality. This is, and a lot of my life, none of us were taught this, but I literally had to unlearn that, and this can be quite alien for a while, is that your thoughts are not you. The thoughts are just thoughts, and we don't really have a lot of control over our thoughts. And for most of my life, I attached to the thoughts, whether they were good or bad, and I believed that they were me. And through my learning, I realized that our thoughts are not us; they're just thoughts. And what's contained within our heart is the real truth of who you are. And really, when you're in your head, you're not fully engaged in the present. You're either thinking about the past or you're thinking about the future. And really, all we have is the now. And a lot of life is boring. It's boring. But it's finding joy through those mundane things. And if you're fully present and you're in that moment, then that's where you find the joy. Even in the simple things like making a drink, cleaning up, whatever it can be, you'll find joy if you're in that present moment. Suffering occurs when you don't accept your reality, when your idea in your head of how reality should be compared to how it is. That's when the suffering and the conflict occurs, through our thoughts. And I often found that with me, it was often, I've got to have X and then I will be happy. So focused on getting to this place within my business, when I get to that place, then I can start doing all these other things, and then I'm going to be happy. Like a lot of people do. Or if I had a bigger house, if I earn more money, if I did this, then I'll start to be happy. That's what creates the unhappiness. That's what stops us from being fully in our hearts and not feeling the joy. So you can't be both unhappy and in the present moment. So this just tells us the power and the effect that our thoughts have on us. You cannot be both unhappy and in the present moment. And I lived in my head for a lot of my life, choosing to buy into negative thoughts, things that I would think about myself, that I would latch onto those thoughts and create them bigger in our head. And you've all heard the phrase that thoughts become things, and that is absolutely true. And I was often trying to work everything out in my head. What ifs were coming up. I'd try and anticipate whether this would work, whether it wouldn't, until I created anxiety, overwhelm, just by being in my head way too much, instead of actually being and feeling. And I was often on edge, not fully able to enjoy things, because my mind was often in the future. It was either worrying about something, on edge, and it was often in the future about getting to a destination. And if all you're doing is focus on that destination, you can never enjoy the journey, because your mind's in the future. It's not on the present. And we can only be happy if we're in that present moment. And the mind will try and protect you. Like the shadow, it will try and pull you back in, and you'll get the what ifs, which will hold you back. If you're in your head, you'll compare yourself to others, and also you'll start to settle, and your vision and your reality of what your life is can shrink. So it's important. And a lot of men, what they do is they mask pain through sedation. When they start to settle and they start to give up on their dreams and goals, and they tend to do that by trying to make themselves feel better with external things. And usually sedation comes through two things. Hiding from reality will either come through boredom or burnout. You're bored because you haven't got that purpose, that fulfillment, those goals that you want to go after, you're believing in them. Or also you've worked way too hard and you sicken yourself off with the stress, and you're burnt out. So you start to settle with smaller goals, And what you use is you try and distract yourself and sedate with porn, social media, drugs, alcohol, women to escape, to try and make yourself feel better from the reality that you've created. Mine was often, especially when my life fell apart, I was often trying to make myself feel better, generally through buying stuff, buying clothes, buying things to try and just make myself feel better. So, how can we be in our hearts so that we can be fully all that we can be in life, in our true power, in our true essence of who we are? And our heart is our intuition. This is our true guide as to who we are. The intuition, it's not we have to think things, we just feel it, and we have that sense of knowing when we open up to this as to who you are in your fullest truth and your power. Who you are is who you are, and when you're in your heart, it cannot be denied. And your feeling is your compass. It's not the thoughts in your head as to how things are going. It's that feeling. How you feel is your compass. So, what activities get you out of your head? And if you think about people, whether it's someone going to the cinema to go and see something on the big screen, people could wait a couple of months and could see it in the comfort of their own home with their own cinema surround and everything. Concerts, whatever it is. People pay lots of money to get out of their head and into a state of being, into their heart, into that flow where everything is natural and you've got that natural essence going on. So, what activities could you be getting involved in more of, and what gets you out of your head and into your heart and into your natural state of being? Is it walking in nature? For me, meditation is important for me, and also yoga is perfect. I always do a couple of yoga classes a week, because if I don't, I feel completely different. That is one of my core things that I have to do, because it gets me into my body, it gets me into my flow, it gets me into my heart, into my breathing, and I'm really able to recharge and switch off and empty my mind for that period. Altered states as well. A lot of CEOs, top people, they're into the Silicon Valleys, etc. A lot of those people are into things like extreme sports and creating altered states which get them out of their heads. Music. I get a lot of energy from live music. In fact, I'm going to a gig tonight because I find when I go to a gig, I'm completely in my heart. I get in a state if it's a really good gig, and that energy can travel inside of me for weeks, sometimes even months. And sports as well. I enjoy playing tennis. I don't know what you do, but think about what gets you out of your head and into your heart. And I remember when I was teaching martial arts, and then I sold my schools. I was able to keep the commercial premises, so I went online and had one of the world's biggest martial arts instructor membership websites. But the problem with that is I went from teaching, and I'm an extrovert, so I need that external energy. I have a lot of energy. I love talking, connecting with people face to face. I literally went from that to being sat in front of a computer with very little human interaction. Now that wasn't perfect for me, and it took me into my head, and that was where problems really occurred for me. Things became heavy and created anxiety for me.